Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for joining us here at the start of Chase for Pace. My name is Chad Dillon. My co-host Kelvin Roper has momentarily stepped away, but he will be joining us in a matter of minutes. But in the meantime, here we are, JSRA 2024. And this is the start to the Chase for Pace season as we kicked off CTCCs yesterday. That would be the Caribbean Touring Car Championship. However, this is a team competition. We have drivers from very many nations participating here this evening. I see some, well, obviously Jamaicans, some Colombians, and we have a few drivers from the US and Panama, as well as there might be one European driver somewhere in there. Roger Keller there in P11 as part of the 2024 season. As you may have noticed, the grid is quite a bit larger than we have seen in the past, and we also thank those of you joining us in the chat. I see the shout out from one Tavar Clark, who is in the chat instead of on the grid. Why is that? But I'm not throw word after nobody, don't worry. However, we are about to get started in the qualifying session here. We are in the Radical series where we will be touring North America, starting at Road Atlanta in the Radical SR3 XXR. And we see very many familiar names, some names that you may not recognize, but obviously the talent is here. We see the times at the top of the timing sheet looking blistering. Mid to low 119s, nothing to scoff at. I dare say that is the maximum you can get out of these cars at this point. So maybe there's a little more performance to be found, but certainly they have given their all in trying to get the most possible out of these cars. So as we await the start of the qualifying session, where we see who will get going in pole position for round number 1 here in the Chase for Pace series, the Radical competition, we can look at what teams we have participating. So we have, what's that, 2, 4, 5, 6 teams, it would seem, participating in the Chase for Pace series this year. They may not all be present at any one time, but certainly you will see them throughout the year. And we can look at the drivers on each of the individual teams. For JSRA, there are 2 teams, 3 teams actually, Team A, B, and C. Team A consists of one Kurt Massive, who I do not think is racing here this evening, and Raven Plummer, Jaden Harrison, and Roger Robinson. That is a formidable team, ladies and gentlemen. Team B consists of Mitch and Wallace, Mark Anthony Eaton, Senna Somerville, and Kimani Eastman. Also not a team to scoff at. I mean, all of these teams look pretty stacked. Team C, Stephen Pommels, Michael McNair, Mikhail Charles, and Joshua Brady. Any of these drivers can show up on any given day and give you a blistering performance. Looking up and down the order, I see Team A in 4th, Team B in 2nd, and obviously the other drivers throughout the teams are listed in the classification. Mikhail Charles down there in P9 from Team C. And then you have the drivers from Nova Racing, or Colombian counterparts. We have Luis Daniel Velez, Estefano Barrero, Felipe Gil, Juan Quintero, and Pipe Ceballos. And we see, well, they are at the top of the timing sheets currently, and down there in P8 as well. These drivers certainly coming to give us their all this year in the JSRA competition. And we have our Tita Racing there with Mitsuhiro Sato and Roger Keller. I tripped all over that name. I do apologize. The Jamaican-ness in me failed at pronouncing that name. However, we are about to get going in the qualifying session, and Raven Plummer leads us out of the pits to be the first driver on an outlap and the first driver likely to start a flyout. Road Atlanta is a track that we have used before in another Radical series, and certainly this track will give us some good racing action. You definitely have some high speed turns, some medium speed turns, and a lot of straights. So there'll be lots of high speed action, and drivers will certainly have to pick and choose their spots to overtake. One of the popular overtaking zones, the long back straight, which Raven Plummer is now progressing along, and it doesn't look very straight, but it's flat out the whole way down, so we still term it a straight. But we will get going with a few flying laps in a few moments time, and certainly that will give us a representation of what we are to expect here in this race this evening. This race will be two 20-minute races. The second race will be a reverse grid of the top 10, so for all of the drivers that finish outside of the top 10, they will certainly be starting where they finish. I don't know if I did cover GT Panama with Vince da Silva, Romero Dominguez, Rafael Rivas, and Juan Quintero. However, as we get going with Raven, who is the first driver on a flying lap, we see a driver up ahead there on an outlap. We hope that she is not hindered in any way, but we will see if we get a representative benchmark time here as she is going through the S's to complete sector 1 at the moment, and then up the straight to the double right hander to start sector 3 at the midway point of that long back straight. She should now be coming through the second right hander there to start the blast down the back straight. We will see what lap time we get in a few corners time, as she should be the first driver to complete a flyer as mentioned before. And there her team is displayed, JSRA Team A, and certainly we will do a rundown at some point as to what these teams mean and how it will affect the overall JSRA Chase series as Raven runs wide there, and this lap will not count. That is an invalidation, and she will have to go again to get a more representative time. So I think Stephen Pommels will be the first driver to give us a representative lap time, or he should actually now be starting his flying lap. My apologies. And we're going to be struggling to keep up here this evening, ladies and gentlemen. We certainly have a very full grid as we get the first two representative times. Estefano Barrero on a 1:19.1. That, ladies and gentlemen, I do believe is the quickest time we have seen all week. So we are already throwing down gauntlets here. Colombia giving us an idea of what they are bringing to the table, and they will certainly be a team to watch overall, because with Estefano Barrera and Yeel involved in that team, those two drivers will be giving us something to look at. Mark Anthony Eaton there, the second driver to crack the 1:19 mark, and did so with 0.8 of a second to the driver in first, as we're on board with Luis Daniel Velez, who is going down the back straight here now. We will, as you notice, again, this is a very large grid, 17 drivers participating in the race here this evening. We will be hard strapped to keep up with the action here as these drivers get unleashed around Road Atlanta, but we will do our best to give you the most action-packed moments as best we can as we progress into this race. And looking through the order, we're still waiting on roughly a little less than half the grid to complete flyers, but again, so far Colombia, the first team to throw the gauntlet. Noma Racing, Estefano Barrero, sits there in P1 comfortably at the moment, 0.8 of a second in it. Luis Daniel Velez in third, behind Mark Anthony Eaton, the first of the drivers that have not yet cracked the 1:19 class, as as he has a spin there through the double right hand section at the top of the track. Mikhail Charles there, a Trini driver, racing under the Jamaican banner for the JSRA here in this series and overall, as Cale Vaden-Roper has finally joined us, so maybe we can get a different voice so you're not listening to me drone on for too long. Cale, good evening.
Good evening, Chad, and good evening, viewers and supporters live on YouTube and Sportsmax app, wherever you're watching from in the world. We are here at Road Atlanta. It is 4.1 kilometers, 12 corners of up, down, left, right. We're going to be seeing a lot of we're going to be seeing these drivers explore track limits and battling it out there on track. We've been seeing the times come from 22s all the way down to 19. Estefano Barrera with a 119.1. That's no play time at all, Chad. So, I think
I do believe that's the fastest time we've seen all week, and certainly it is nothing to scoff at. Colombia showing that they are maybe the team to watch here in the first set of rounds for Chase Pace in 2024, because they currently sit 1 and 2, separated by about 2.5 tenths of a second. So yeah, no, that's going to be tough to beat overall, and the Jamaicans need to get themselves going in that direction if they want to compete. I see Mark Anthony Eaton and Jaden Harrison they were sitting comfortably, but drivers from both Team A and Team B for the JSRA currently sitting 3 to 5, and they're not separated by much. They're separated by about a couple of thousandths, really. Those drivers, they're showing that they have. I've seen the servos throughout the week, Cale, and there's been a lot of collaboration between the teams to try and maximize their advantage overall in this competition. But we will certainly, as Yale goes even faster than Barrera on 119.114, so about 0.08 of a second separating the two Colombians at the top of the timing sheets at the moment.
They definitely pushing the boundaries here, and we're teetering right on the edge of breaking the 119s. That was a stonking lap from the Colombian, leading the pack at this moment in time. 7 minutes left in qualifying, and I'm expecting some really interesting things, and seeing as though this is it's the first time I believe we're having a team series of this nature, with teams having up to 5 drivers. We're going to see how strategy will come into play here. I mean, it might be just a 20-minute race and another 20-minute reverse grid, and I'm actually looking forward to the reverse grid as well. Chat, look at we have a stacked grid here, so we're gonna see a lot of moves going on to try and. I was gonna reference yesterday to see if Raven Plummer can keep herself in the top 10 this time, perhaps at the front of the grid, to prevent her misfortune last time out. And this series, it is designed to push drivers and their teams to the limit and showcase their skill and the strategy. And I'm hoping we're already seeing a lot of skill, but I'm hoping to see some real interesting strategy games.
Some team models coming into play at some point.
Right.
We did see a bit of that in a few of the preseason rounds, where drivers started working together in the name of the team game to try and maximize their chances to get a good result. So certainly these drivers are not foreign to the concept of playing the team game, but as to when it comes to driver glory, sometimes the head and the heart don't necessarily agree.
Absolutely.
You want to claim that top spot for yourself, but the overall team game might be beneficial to think along the lines of the team game, particularly when it comes time to go wheel to wheel. You may not want to battle your teammate as hard as you might battle someone else, because at the end of the day, points are awarded overall to the teams, and the teams will be looking to claim prizes throughout the course of the season based on where these teams rank overall. So yeah, no, absolutely, the team game will become important, and I believe this is a step in a new direction for the JSRA, as this is the first time we are hard and fast with the teams, as I gave you the rundown of the teams earlier. These teams will be consistent throughout the season, I do believe. Maybe you see some drafts here and there. We don't exactly know fully yet what will happen as we get later down in the year. Teams may dwindle in numbers and then things change. But overall, these should be the teams for the duration of the season. So we will be watching to see how best these teams work together and what comes of their overall championship, at which we will try and keep you updated on.
And it's going to be a long championship. We're going to be seeing events happening way down even into August. So if you happen to miss the first event live and you don't want to just watch the replay, ooh, Jaden there exploring those track limits, trying to keep that car in a straight line. They're really pushing. But if you'd like to, if you happen to miss this one, you don't need to worry. This championship is going to be going all year long, and that emphasizes the importance of the team game and ensuring that the team is put first. But as you say in a chat, these drivers, there's going to come a point where what the heart says and what the head says will not be the same thing, and we're going to see sparks fly, perhaps a bit of civil war between the teams.
I don't know if you watched race earlier, but some Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo type of animosity.
I have not watched it, but that
well, I have not spoiled much. You'll know it when you see it, however. Okay. Yeah, no, we will certainly be getting some action throughout the course of the year. And as Kale mentioned, this will be a very long calendar year. As I mentioned, this is the Radical series, which is 4 rounds, and they will cover mostly tracks in North America for these 4 rounds, and then we will move on to TCR for 6 rounds starting in April, and then we have WEC coming up after that, which is a mini solo endurance for another 6 rounds starting in July, I believe that is. And then we have the DBR9 GT1 or the Praga R1 Cup. That sounds like a multi-round series, which comes up in June. Porsche Cup on Assetto Corsa Competizione will be in May, and some of the rounds taking place in November. So we certainly have a very full year ahead of us here at the JSRA. I know that was a little disjointed in how the calendar is listed, but it will all be explained in due time, and there will be clarity on why some of the rounds are split the way they are and how it will affect the overall drivers and team championships.
But it's all for the benefit of you, our viewers. We want to give you something to watch every single weekend, and I believe even throughout the week. Coming up soon, we'll be having races of different classes, different series, multi-class series even. So be on the lookout. Follow us on our social media pages at JSRA Official on Instagram. That's our main page. And you can follow us on Twitch to be kept in touch when we are going live, as well as on YouTube. Subscribe and, share it with your friends, because we're only growing and we're only getting bigger, and the skill set and the talent pool is getting deeper and deeper. I mean, look at the amount of drivers we have on the server right now from all around the world. We have the Colombians coming out very strong in there are P1, 2, and 4. Raven Plummer making herself, putting herself in the mix there at the front, giving Luis Daniel Velez and Mark Anthony Eaton behind something to chase now. And we all know Raven is very, very, very good driver. So I'm definitely excited to see how this qualifying shakes out. It's almost finished that though.
Yeah, with about 30 seconds to go, we'll be starting the last round of flying laps now. Any driver in the pits will not be doing another flyer, so for the likes of Camilo Quintes down to Roger Keller, that will be their starting position, barring improvements from McName or Sato further down the order. And we have most of the other drivers out on track. Eaton and Harrison in the pits, so they cannot improve any further. So we will be watching the likes of Mikhail Charles, who should have just completed a flyer for 1:19.8, and that should be the final time that he can get. I believe all of the drivers now will be finishing up their laps. Estefano Barrera, they're coming through the final sector. We will see if there's any improvement there for him. Although I'm not sure if he's currently on a flyer, because I am seeing the checkered flag there. And he is pulling into the pit, so I guess he has abandoned that lap. Raven Plummer actually has improved in Sector 1, down a bit in Sector 2, but
Personal best.
she can improve her time overall. And will it be enough to challenge the top 2 drivers trying to slot herself into the Colombians? Can she do it? She improves, but not enough. And I believe we now have our starting grid, ladies and gentlemen. We have Noble Racing taking up the first 2 spots. JSRA Team A with Raven Plummer sitting in 3rd. Noble Racing again in 4th. So Noble Racing coming out firing here in round number 1. Mark Anthony in there in 5th for JSRA Team B. Jaden Harrison for Team A in 6th position. Mikhail Charles, I believe, is Team C down there in 7th, along with Stephen Pommels right beside him. Those 2 are our teammates, I do believe. In 7 and 8, Michael Paisley, a name we have not heard in quite some time, dare I say, sits in P9 alongside Roger Robinson, who is a part of Team A there with Raven Plummer and Jaden Harrison in P10. The point system for this competition goes all the way down to P12, so you are fighting down to P12. To give you a rundown of the points: first position 20 points, second place 16, third place 13, fourth 10, fifth 8, 7th 6, 7, and it goes all the way down in increments of 1 to 12th position for the final points playing position. And of course the fastest lap will earn you an additional point. And for the reverse grid, it's half points, so points still on offer all the way down to 12, but you will only get half a point if you manage to finish in P12. But in a competition like this one, them half points will add up, and they will certainly be to your benefit later on in the competition when point standings are looking tight. Well, here we are now at the end of qualifying, and as I mentioned, the grid is set. We have 16 drivers that have completed timed laps. However, certainly I believe we should have had 17 drivers starting, but I'm not sure if P17 will be on the grid. We are again doing rolling starts, ladies and gentlemen. The safety car will lead us away for a formation lap, and then the safety car will peel in for the drivers to get going at the start of lap number 2, because the time does start when the safety car pulls away. So technically that is a classified lap on the safety car conditions for lap number 1. However, we will be doing a rolling start as opposed to a standing start. Turn 1 here is gonna be something to watch.
It usually is, it's not quite a tight right-hander. It's actually, in fact, the opposite. It's a very fast right-hander that is slightly off camber. The further you go into it, it's easy for cars like these that depend on that aero advantage they get at high speeds to keep it stuck to the ground going around that corner. It's not a one-line corner, but I'm sure the drivers have been practicing the fastest possible times that they could do, and that's of course would be on one particular line. So going side by side through turn 1, through the right-hander and over the hill. It's going to get real tight up there real quick, and we're going to see a lot of jostling for positions, but hopefully they all keep it clean. That's the aim of the standing start. The rolling start. Everyone should, it should be a little bit more easy to get into a rhythm.
Absolutely, but as we were discussing that turn 1, it is not really a braking zone, it is a lifting zone. Right. So that's going to be another factor to consider. Normally drivers, you get into a braking zone, you brake a little bit earlier to get through turn 1 comfortably, but in the case where you're lifting, you don't want to lose too much time or give up positions willingly, but you also need to keep it clean. So it's certainly going to be something to watch when we get to turn 1. And as you can see there, this is a very full grid. Cars lining up all the way down to the curbed section to complete sector 3, the final corner there, which is a flat out corner. So those drivers shouldn't be too much at a disadvantage there. It's just that, well, I guess that also is a benefit of the rolling start, because if that was a standing start, you know, you don't want to be turning your wheel while you're trying to get up the power. You will get a little bit of wheel spin coming off the line. However, the safety car will be rolling through, and actually I did notice that El Presidente adjusted the time, because it is a 20-minute race, but we have 22 minutes on the clock, so that the safety car lap does not take away from our racing action, ladies and gentlemen. El Presidente thinks of everything, I swear. But there goes the safety car now to try and make its way through the pack to lead them away. Everybody is standing waiting for the safety car to go by, and then the field will pull away. And as we are on the formation lap again, in the team game here, we have Noble Racing, and there's a car off already in the background there, and I'm not sure who that was. Tumbling down the order, Raven Plummer is in 4th, and Estefano no, that is correct. Sorry, I don't know. That Daniel Velez going off there? It seemed to have been. He is now resuming his correct position behind Raven Plummer. But yeah, no, it certainly will be something to see when we get to green light racing conditions, and it seemed a few drivers did fall out of position. No, that was not Jaden Harrison overtaking on the safety car conditions. He was trying to get back to his correct grid spot for the rolling start.
Yeah, drivers seeming to get away quite cleanly, well, as clean as can be. They'll have that long back stretch leading up into the final complex of corners to get themselves sorted, to go double-breasted and get ready for the start of this race, Chad. It's going to be, oh my goodness, I don't want to call it too soon, but we're definitely, it's what I always say, we're going to see sparks fly. Whether that's good or that's bad, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, no, and also probably literally, because some of the drivers, I believe, are running these cars so low that you will get sparks when they run over some of those curbs. Well, not the spark scale was referring to. However, I did notice that Daniel Velez may have made a little bit of contact with the wall on the start there of the formation lap, and that could be a problem for him, because these cars are heavily dependent on their aero, and again, you have a lot of high-speed sections, so we will see if that costs him anything when we get up to racing conditions. The grid is now being held at 120 kilometers per hour, and we have green light, ladies and gentlemen, and we are away for round number 1 in the JSRA Pace series, and there's already a massive accident there in the background, and I believe a safety car has been called. I'm not quite sure. The drivers still seem to be going at top speed, but who was that tumbling down the order? That seemed to have been Kimani Eastman and Camilo Quintes. Jaden Harrison as well as Mark Anthony Eden are all the way down in 17 and 18, having started, I believe, 5th and 6th. So a safety car has been called, and the safety car is waiting at the end of the pits to bring the drivers together. They should now be driving to a delta. These drivers now have to bunch themselves back up to get going again on the second lap, and just as we expected. But I don't even think we made it to turn 1 before the carnage started. I think that carnage started at the end of sector 3 through the final corner there to get back to the line.
This one's a little bit more understandably. I myself was caught out by that green flag. It dropped very quickly, and I think many of the drivers on the grid, they weren't really expecting that that green flag to drop so quickly to get up to racing pace, and some of the more astute drivers towards the middle and the rear of the pack. And I've gotten the jump on the drivers ahead of them, and if you're trying to get there when someone who's moving particularly slow, you have nowhere to go but into the back of them. So they should be more prepared now that we're getting one more chance to get going. I'm not sure if we're gonna be doing another lap after this one.
I think we might be, as the safety car is out on track waiting to collect the field. I'm not sure if it's a case of the safety car is going to peel back into the pits should it not to be needed, but the field is bunched, so I'm not sure if the race director will be calling for race to resume here. without needing the safety car to lead the field around. But we will get that decision in a few moments' time. He is currently giving the drivers instructions, and based on how the drivers are moving, I do think we will have one more lap of safety car conditions. And the safety car is, oh no, it seems we are going back to racing, as we do have the servo countdown up on screen. So we have 3, 2, 1, and we should be getting go now, and we do have go, and we are off once more, ladies and gentlemen. Colombia 1, 2, and 3. When did that happen? Raven Plummer lost position there to Daniel Velez and came under attack almost immediately from Pommels and Roger Robinson there, it seems. But the 3 Colombians leading the field away ever so nicely there, comfortably running 1, 2, and 3 at the moment. So Noble Racing looking good here in round number 1, and they will be the team to beat for this particular round. There will be no mandatory pit stops, and again there is a reverse grid to come after the fact, and that is Raven Plummer going off at the exit of the double right-hander, and Kale shakes his head because he may have felt
it's an
slightly
easy corner to get
responsible.
wrong. But, you know, it's very these cars are very sensitive on the throttle, and that corner, that double right-hander there, the second of those two, it has a curb on the outside. And having driven a few laps of this track myself, I am all too familiar with the dangers of that corner in particular, or even perhaps getting a bit jumpy there and getting it a little bit wrong. But 15 minutes to go, and the field is still quite close, managing to get away cleanly after that virtual safety car restart. And we see Vince da Silva here looking very racy, pulling up to the back of Roger Keller, just
Maybe backing out of that a bit, thinking better of trying to make the attack there into turn number 1. I see Sato falling down the order, may have had an incident there towards the end of sector 2. Eaton still all the way at the back of the grid despite the safety car restart there, but Pommel's looking to go on the offensive and is actually under threat from Roger Robinson, who is also trying to attack Luis Daniel Velez, and Pommel's there sweeping around the outside in the double right hand section, taking the position from Velez, but Velez looks to have gotten the better exit there heading down the straight. And ladies and gentlemen, I did tell you we're going to struggle to keep up with the racing action because Velez and Pommels going side by side all the way down the straight with Roger Robinson in tow. These 3 drivers are giving us a battle here heading towards the final chicane.
It's going to be 3 wide shot heading into the heavy braking zone. Velez on the outside, Robinson trying to sneak up the inside, temporarily gets that position, but he gets knocked out a little bit of contact there between the Colombian and the Jamaican, but they're still living. They live to fight another day, and Stephen Pommels is loving what's happening right now. He has benefited the most out of that little kerfuffle there, but I think Velez and Robinson are definitely going to be getting back into it.
Absolutely, that's a nice word there, Kale. Kerfuffle. I like it. Yeah, but Mikhail Charles, Kimani Eastman, and Jaden Harrison there involved in a battle. With a 17 car grid, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do the best we can, but it's going to be hard to follow all of the action up and down the field as Velez and Pommels are still going at it. Velez looks to have gotten that position back, and Roger Robinson behind also seems to have gotten that position from Stephen Pommels. I'm not sure if that was a mistake from Pommels there, losing the same 2 positions he gained by this part of the track the lap before, and has it all to do again going down the order. But Jaden Harrison looks to be a man on a mission, currently tucked in the slipstream of Roger Keller, and is going to look to make that move down the back straight there. And the 2 are side by side going down the straight. We will not be able to follow all the action. We do see Raven Plummer further down the order trying to make her way back up the field, also running side by side down the back straight with Lopez, and looks to have gotten that position off, and battles are taking place further up the order. Ladies and gentlemen, we have an action-packed race here, and we are not yet halfway through. We've been treated to quite a few overtakes, and most of them as we expected down the back straight there, along the back straight before you get to the heavy braking zone. But Pommels looks to be closing back up to that group of Velez and Robinson. Robinson has managed to get ahead of Velez to take that P3, and P3 looks to be the position to fight for in this race, because
Definitely.
Felipe Gil is miles ahead, and Pommels loses it on the exit there of the S's. A very tricky corner. If you do not get it right, you end up on the outside curb there, unsettling the car, and that's what comes of it.
Now with that damage, I'm not sure if Pommels is going to be able to put in the lap times like he has been doing, but it may put him on level pegging here with the likes of Eastman and Roger Keller ahead. He's going to have to battle it out now with the mid-pack to see if he can salvage the rest of this race. But let's not forget that, and here's Jaden Harrison bum drafting almost, giving Michael Paisley the hurry up. You're wasting my time. I have podiums to stand on.
A good catch there from Jaden Harrison, as Paisley and Da Silva up ahead are chasing each other, and Jaden Harrison is looking to get involved in that fight. Paisley there stepping out and taking that position away from Vince Da Silva, and Jaden Harrison might look to follow suit almost immediately.
He's up the inside, going over the hill into the right-hander. He leaves a space. Vince Da Silva and Jaden Harrison collects it and continues his journey towards getting past his old rival, Michael Paisley.
The action is coming fast and furious here in this race. We're trying to follow it up and down the order, as Kimani Eastman there is giving chase to Roger Keller, and there's a driver on the exit of the S's there, and that could have been a disaster for Eastman had he not been able to avoid it.
It's disaster for Michael Paisley. Not sure what happened with him there. Just getting it all wrong there at the exit of that left-hander.
Yeah,
turn 5.
That seems to be the corner that's going to cause problems here and there. But Kimani Eastman, whilst he should have been attacking Roger Keller, is now coming under threat from Camilo Quintes, and Quintes might have that move done by the time we get to the heavy braking zone. But Eastman smartly positions himself on the inside, and will he get the elbows out to prevent? Yes, he will, to prevent Quintes from diving up the inside there in the second part of that chicane. Maintains 9th position for now, but I'm sure Camilo Quintes will be trying to figure out what to do next. And all the while, Daniel Velez there closing down on Roger Robinson, trying to get involved in the fight there for the final podium paying position, which, again, Barrera and Gil have disappeared off into the distance. They are comfortably running 1 and 2 and maybe working together. They're using a bit of slipstream to pull each other along. They are teammates after all, and it would certainly benefit them to take that 1-2 here in race number 1 of this competition.
And Velez trying to make it a 1-2-3 for Colombia, trying to get past Ray Robinson here, going down the back stretch. We know these cars are very sensitive to aerodynamics, and as such, picking up the toll or the slipstream coming down this very long backstretch, it's gonna make or break a few races, and it's already been very beneficial to the likes of Kimani Eastman. Robinson goes defensive. Can Velez take him around the outside? Robinson doesn't quite close the door.
Left it a little bit open there, and Velez tries to stick a nose in, and that will gift Jaden Harrison P3. Jaden Harrison coming from the back of the pack to find himself there in the 3rd spot. Mikhail Charles and Mark Anthony Eaton sitting in the pits. Those two drivers have called it a day here in race number 1.
Charles, I believe, was disqualified for speeding into the pits.
I see, and then maybe those two drivers thinking they had far too much damage to repair, as Velez there loses it on the exit of turn 1, manages to keep the car facing the right direction though, but loses a few positions in the process. Kimani Eastman there getting ahead of Daniel Velez, who is now coming under attack from fellow countryman Camilo Quintes. Velez's race is unraveling here. Just a few moments ago he was fighting for P3, now sits down there in P9, and Raven Plummer is getting involved with the two Colombians. Maybe Velez suffering a little too much damage there gives Quintes the chance to move ahead of him, thinking the team game, because these are the final few points paying positions here, ladies and gentlemen, and if you can't contribute at the top, contribute in any way you can, I guess, is the standpoint here. But certainly Raven Plummer will be thinking as to how best she can get on the offensive here against the two Colombians,
forcing
JSRA
them to go 2 wide with themselves, not 3 wide. It's going to be whoever is latest on the brakes. Raven on the inside has it turns to the outside for the second part of this chicane, and she was there, but then she wasn't. Getting a little bit squirrely there, she even loses out of position to Michael McName, who moves from 12 now up into 11. And she's going to have to wheel and come again, but we know she has the speed and the skill to do it. So we're going to see what happens.
I think
here.
got a little too overzealous there on the brakes, and that is that Daniel Velez going off once again, off to the side there on the exit of T1. But yeah, no, I think she just got a little too excited, braked a little too late there towards the final chicane, and that was all she wrote. But she does get the position back from Michael McName in a very unorthodox spot on the track.
Made it quite easy it seems, and basically giving her all the space she needed to move into into P10, going down the little squiggly bits. We'll call it there, leading up to turn 5. Perhaps the Jamaicans have a bit of camaraderie going on here. He knows he's fighting for a certain position, and he's not going to hold up the sister team. But speaking of teams, Roger Robinson, Stephen Pommels, not on the same team, fighting for the same country, but Robinson is looking very, very quick in that black radical, and he was getting very close to the back of Pommels. Pommels, remember, has damage to the front of his car, so it's going to be a little bit more tricky for him to pilot that machine around the track. But he is doing so nonetheless. McName seems to be struggling a little bit here for pace. He was trying to make it easy for Quintez behind to pass, but a bit of contact there with Paisley, and it's going to be even more damage for Michael now. But let's focus back on Ray Robinson, and rather Estefano Barrera, deciding 5 minutes left. I think we're far enough ahead.
It's time to attack. These two drivers are out here in a league of their own, so maybe Barrera thinking, hey, you know what? We are countrymen, but the top spot sounds a lot nicer than P2, so I'm going to go on the offensive here. We're not under threat from anybody, and as long as they manage to keep it clean, I don't think they would come under threat from anybody. So these two drivers are going to go at it in a countryman squabble to try and take the victory, because as much as a 1-2 sounds nice, race victor sounds much nicer to an individual as opposed to P2. So certainly these two drivers are going to go at it. Or maybe this is still just a team game being played, because he is
absolutely not
following along quite nicely.
Felipe there went slightly defensive heading into the first corner, just sort of saying, hey, I know we're bros, but but don't think about it, going up the inside of turn 1. But Barrera, we know he is no stranger to the JSRA, and he's been a part of our events in previous outings. He is a very quick driver, and I think he is definitely going to want to be he'd rather be the one to win than the first to lose, and that would be P2. So he's going to wheel and come again, 4 minutes left, plus 1 lap, and maybe playing it safe here, sitting in the slipstream, not punishing the tires too much before it gets to crunch time, and he tries to make a move for the win.
Absolutely, with 4 minutes to go, he's not yet in too much of a hurry, but Raven Plummer might be the one in a hurry here, right on the back of Kimani Eastman on the start of the long straight, steps out of the slipstream and will, I think, comfortably have this move done by the time we get to the braking zone, and that is Raven Plummer back to P8. Somewhere in watching that battle between Barrera and Gilles, Roger Robinson has fallen down the order to P10 behind. He was running in P5 behind the silver. Pommels gets that position, and Roger Robinson finds himself down in P10. But it's been chaos. But I must say, I do prefer the chaos of today to the chaos of CTCC yesterday. However, we still have about 3.5 minutes of racing action to go, and Daniel Velez is currently putting the pressure on Roger Keller here in the dying stages of the race, and Raven Plummer not too far behind. So if those two do get involved in a little bit of a tango, she might be looking to see how best she can pick up the pieces of whatever happens.
And speaking of a tango, it's more of a tap dance here between Barrera and Felipe. It's still 1-2, but Barrera looking very, very close there. We saw the gap between himself and the man in the lead. getting ever smaller. Felipe there just getting a bit squirrely on the exit of that chicane.
I think we might be at the point now where the tires are starting to scream a little bit, because this is not an easy track on tires, ladies and gentlemen. You are leaning on those tires hard all through sector 1. The first turn is almost completely flat out, and then the S's section you are making very quick direction changes, so you do put a bit of pressure on the tires, and certainly that causes tire wear to be at a high. So maybe that could explain a little bit of the sliding around there from Gilles. But Barrera seems to have been better at managing his tires, because he looks planted there whilst he's now going on the attack, and the two are almost side by side going to the double right hander, and Barrera is maybe looking to set this up now for the long straight, forces Gilles to go a bit defensive, and already getting the better exit, doesn't need the slipstream, pulls out side by side down the back straight. The two Colombians going at it neck and neck down the back straight here, ladies and gentlemen, and I think Barrera there on the outside, I do believe, will have to get it done in the second phase of the chicane, or Gilles there trying to go deep to make sure that he covers it off, getting the elbows out. These two drivers trying their best to be the victor. Yes, it's a Colombian victory, but whose name is going to be on the trophy at the end of the day, I think, is what's happening here between these two drivers. They are giving it their all to try and take the top spot here between the two of them.
And Luis Daniel Velez as well, trying to snatch a position from Stephen Pommels down the back straight. They are side by side. Not anymore. Velez is now firmly in the lead. That was, unfortunately we missed that move, but they were neck and neck. And Estefano Barrera is right back. Well, he didn't go anywhere. Right on the back of Felipe. Still trying to make that move work. The both of them very clean so far. I didn't think they would risk any dangerous moves or dive bombs to try and be the one who wins this race when they have to think about the championship at large. It's going to be a long season, starting with the Radicals for Chase for Pace. But I think for the first round, Estefano Barrera is going to want to be the one who holds the trophy on the top step, and he's trying to make it work again. Back down the inside, heading down into the heavy braking zone. He goes defensive. Felipe on the outside now. He knows the outside, turns to the inside for the second corner. Barrera is still there on the outside. He hasn't squeezed them out. A bit of contact and just getting a little bit messy there on the outside curb. But both drivers, I think, getting a little bit, those elbows definitely coming up there.
No, absolutely. That was a lot different to the previous times. They've been quite respectful thus far, but I believe they sense that we're now on the final lap, so that was the time to get it done. And Gilles defended with all his might there. Played it quite smart, I must say, because Barrera did have that move done heading into the chicane, but just left the door slightly open for Gilles to get up the inside for the second part of the chicane. And Barrera there looked I thought he might have gotten it a bit wrong there coming out of turn 5, however manages to keep it pointing in the right direction. But I do believe Felipe Gilles will take the victory here, barring any kind of catastrophe, as we're now on the back straight, and Barrera is not close enough to get anything to happen. Daniel Velez is trying to claim one more position to make it a Colombia 1-2-5. Can he get by Roger Keller cleanly here? He has about 4 corners in which to do so, and maybe looking to try and get it done by the time we get to the double right-hander on the outside. Will he be able to sweep around before the braking zone? Yes, he can, and gets that move done to take P5 away from Roger Keller. Kimani Eastman and Stephen Pommels there seem to have been involved in a battle where Kimani Eastman comes out on top and will, I think at this point, well, Pommels has the slipstream here all the way down the straight, so will he be trying to fight back before we get into the braking zone for the final chicane? Whilst we're watching this battle, Felipe Gilles did take the victory from Estefano Barrera in second. Jaden Harrison will now cross the line for P3, and I think Pommels there thinking better of it as we are down to the final few corners, maybe not wanting to get too involved with Kimani Eastman there, costing them even further positions by the time they get back to the line, as Camilo Quintes not too far behind there, the 4th driver for Colombia. So Colombia 1, 2, and 5, Panama 4, Jamaica 3. That's a very Colombia dominated top 5 there.
Definitely. They came out in force and they did all their talking on the track, Chad, finishing 1-2 for the season opener for JSRA Chase Radical Series. This is a statement, and I think it's very clear. They are here and they are here to win. A 1-2 for Colombia, Jaden Harrison snatching up P3, managing a race, a pretty lonesome race, but I don't think he will be too perturbed about that. He takes a podium and get some very valuable points for JSRA Team A. Vince Da Silva rounds out the second row in P4, and Luis Daniel Velez in P5, Roger Keller P6, Kimani Eastman finishing P7 ahead of Stephen Pommels. Pommels there, just this is not how he would have wanted the race to go. He was very quick, and at one point in time, I think it was P3, and finds himself finishing this race in P8. Camilo finishing the race in P9. Raven Plummer P10, which puts her at the front of the grid for the reverse grid, starting in another couple of minutes, giving the drivers just a few moments to collect their thoughts and decide what they're going to do differently to go for that victory for the reverse grid. Michael McNeil finishes P11. A tough race for him, losing several positions, perhaps needed a little bit more practice. I'm not sure what happened for him. Roger Robinson, unfortunately for him as well, finishing in P12. He had a good show of speed in qualifying and practice, but 12 is going to be the best he could do for this first round. And Andrew Lopez, I believe, finishing in P13. Michael Paisley at DNF. Michael Sato in P15. Mikhail Charles getting a disqualification, and Eaton in 17th.
Absolutely, and don't remember folks' points are scored all the way down to P12, so Roger Robinson, the last of the points finishers. I don't think it's a lack of practice for drivers like McName and Robinson, because they have been on the servers quite active all week, but maybe just a bit of bad luck there, as we did see for a few of those drivers. Luck playing a major role in some of these fights for the likes of Raven Plummer, who had a few incidents and had to be fighting to get into position. I do believe an incident caused Roger Robinson, who was running in P5 for quite some time, to fall all the way down the order. But again, this was just pure domination for Colombia. The two drivers were so far clear of the field that they could have an inter-team squabble for the last few laps without managing to come under threat. Jaden Harrison was just out there on a lone man's quest by himself there in P3. Vince Da Silva was involved in quite a few fights early on, but did manage to settle himself nicely into P4. Daniel Velez, the fifth driver and the third for the Colombian team, had it all to do. I believe at one point he was running all the way down in P11 and manages to get himself back to P5, and Roger Keller there always hovering right around the midfield and managed to keep himself quite comfortably in P6. And Kimani Eastman, the first driver for, I believe that's Team B, JSRA Team B. No, I think, yes, that is Team B. And yeah, so we will get going in a few moments time for race number dos. And again, this is a reverse grid for half points. Raven Plummer starts on pole position, and we only reverse the top 10, ladies and gentlemen. So any driver that finished outside of the top 10 still starts in their correct position.
Yeah, and it's gonna be a good look for Raven Plummer. You know, clear skies ahead of her. Hopefully she can get away cleanly from Camilo Quintero. Apologies, it's all this time it's been Quintero, not Quintez. My apologies. Stephen Pommels, his first race didn't pan out as he would like, but this second race here to reverse grid, he will find himself in P3, Kimani Eastman in P4, with Roger Kellogg for company in P5, Luis Daniel Velez, a good showing in the first race, finds himself in P6, and I think that's a decent place to start from. There's a decent bit of mobility. You have just a few cars ahead of you and a lot behind you, but anything can happen when you're in the midst of the pack. Vince Da Silva in P7 and Jaden Harrison P8, with Estefano Barrera and Felipe behind. And I don't know how long they will take before they
the two powerhouse Colombians start to make their
Right.
way up the field, but we will be keeping an eye on them in P9 and 10. I don't know if anybody that was watching might have thought, hey, we saw the lights go out and nobody moved. They were waiting on the safety car to go ahead for the formation lap to get us going on a rolling start. We do see a few of the comments in the chat. We thank you for joining us, and yes, that Colombian battle was reminiscent of some of the squabbles we've seen between the Ferrari drivers over the past season, the past Formula One season. But our eyes now turn to race number 2 for the evening. We will be watching as Raven Plummer tries to negate some of the bad luck she has undertaken in the last few races, and tries to hold on to that P1 spot. Maybe gets a clean getaway, and then we will see if any of the drivers behind can give chase. She is sitting beside a Colombian Quintez, and we know the Colombians are no slouches. Quintero. My apologies. But yes, we will be observing the battles going on up and down the order here in race number 2 for the evening, and this is our final race for the evening. And you can definitely, if it's a bit tough to follow what the point standings are, they will be posted on our social media as we go along, both team and driver, so you can stay tuned for that.
And the green flag
came
dropped
out
very
extremely early
But
this time
Raven Plummer
around.
definitely not going to be complaining about that. She gets a clean getaway already, a second between herself and Pommel's behind. Camilo Quintero in P3 loses a position to Pommel, who is on the inside going into turn 1. It's too wide behind them. Eastman, Velez, and Roger Keller battling it out for P4. Jaden Harrison managing to keep his nose clean, as Quintero was unable to do there. We see him dropping down the order. I think that would have been at the top of the hill. Harrison following suit, but manages to keep it going as he tries to rejoin in a safe manner, and does so well enough. Eaton down in P12 trying to make some moves now with his fellow countrymen ahead of him. But up at the front, Stephen Pommels remaining very close to Raven Plummer. It's going to be not as easy as she thought it might have been. Barrera and Felipe Yil in P6 and 7, doubling up positions there, jumping from P9 and 10 up into P6 and 7. As I see Eaton there moving from 12 to 10th. It's all happening here on the first lap of the second race of the night. Stephen Pommels is trying to make that move on Raven Plummer for the lead there, side by side, neck and neck into the heavy braking zone. Pommels on the outside, Raven on the inside. The inside turns to the outside for Plummer, but they are still side by side. She's slightly ahead, but Pommels will have a shorter line to the line, and it's going to be still side by side. Raven giving a very wide berth there, not going to risk it. Any collision between herself and Pommels, who is trying his best to get past, but Raven Plummer, excellent defense there, not allowing Pommels to get by. Pommels not making the mistakes he made last time around, and is definitely trying to show what he really could do. He's trying to go side by side again through 3, 4, and heading up into 5. He is basically pushing her around the track. Jaden Harrison, unfortunately, disconnecting there. After a strong showing in the first race, Michael McName, Eaton, and Robinson all moving up positions as Vince Da Silva tumbles down the order. Mikhail Charles, a bit adrift, not sure what's happened to him down there in P12, but oh my goodness. These two up at the front, I think we saw a Colombian battle in the first race. We're going to see a Jamaican battle as Eaton tries to get past Robinson here on the back stretch there side by side, and McName sitting in the slipstream behind, perhaps thinking to try and get up ahead, but Velez tries to make a move on Eastman. Eastman on the inside, he is going to think better of that move and let him go. He almost runs a little bit wide. Eastman there getting a bit of snap oversteer, running off into the gravel. It's unfortunate for him there. Raven Plummer and Stephen Pommels are still going at it. Pommels manages to get ahead for the time being, but Estefano Barrera behind, that's the fastest lap. He and his countryman Yale are trying to get through, and they're not being slouches about it at all, Chad. They're moving.
Absolutely, and they've already swallowed up Luis Daniel Velez there. Estefano Barrera getting ahead, but Raven Plummer and Stephen Pommel still going at it here. These two have not left each other alone since this race has started. Those two seem to be glued together magnetically. Raven Plummer still trying to get back that position that she lost to Pommels the previous lap, and maybe will use the slipstream down the back straight to try and get that done. But she now may have to also be paying attention to her rearview mirror, as she has two very swift Colombians, actually three very swift Colombians behind her. Felipe Yil a little away from the front two, but Velez and Barrera are right there watching those two battle for the lead. And I think now it becomes a matter of, can you put a car between yourself and the charging Colombian, because he showed excellent pace in the first race. So I think the battle for the lead is also a battle for survival at the moment, because you will come under threat in a few moments time. Barrera is already right there with Raven Plummer and Stephen Pommels. These three will be going at it through the first sector. Who is gonna come out on top here? Raven having to take a bit of breaks there through the first corner, which is not the usual method of getting through that corner, but maybe just trying to keep out of the back of Stephen Pommels, who might have been a little slow there. But that opens her up to attack from Estefano Barrera, and will he be looking to make the move as Raven runs wide there and might have just opened the door, oh my goodness, and make some contact and opens the door for all three Colombians. And now Stephen Pommels, the lone Jamaican, out in front with three Colombian sharks right behind him waiting to swallow him up. And we will see how long he can manage to hold on to the lead of this race with the wolf pack behind him. He will be under threat any moment now.
If there's one thing I can say, Chad, there is definitely no team orders between the brother and sister team for the JSRA. Stephen Pommels and Raven Plummer both driving for JSRA, but I think teams A and B. And you would think that they would work together like the Colombians did, but not at all. That their little squabbling, that fighting they did throughout the first and second lap allowed these three rapid Colombians to catch right up. And now Pommels already losing out the top spot to Barrera, who takes it from him in the final corner down the start-finish straight. And now he's going to, well, Pommels, I know he's going to try and get it back, but I think
break himself there, and causes now, I think all three Colombians will get through. And Pommels went from second to fourth position in a matter of a few corners. The Colombians putting immense pressure on Stephen Pommels there, and they have taken spots 1, 2, and 3. Those Colombians are blistering out here this evening.
Plummer and Pommels are back at it again. They are now, it seems as though they're inseparable. Glued magnetically, I think is how you put it, Chad. But Raven Plummer finally gets that position back from Stephen Pommels. She didn't retake first, it's for fourth, unfortunately for her, but now she has her sights on the three Colombians ahead of her, who almost seem to be moving in formation, Chad. They are chopping, cutting, and dicing up the field and find themselves back in P1, 2, and 3 here around the road Atlanta.
They are certainly showing that they are a force to be reckoned with. Estefano Barrera, Luis Felipe Gil, and Luis Daniel Velez just out here showing us that they came to play here in JSRA Pace, and they are not chasing the pace, they have the pace. Everybody else is chasing them. So they have been the team to beat here so far in this competition. It's only round 1, but I mean, you finish as strong as you start, they say. So coming out firing for round one, and that will certainly set the tone for them for the rest of this series. But Raven Plummer looks to have finally gotten some breathing room there from Stephen Pommels behind, who is now under threat from Mark Anthony Eaton, maybe looking to make amends for his very unfortunate race number one. So we will see if Eaton there can close the gap, getting a little bit squirrely on the exit of the double right-hander, which, as Kale rightfully mentioned, that second right-hander is a killer because you do have a bit of off-camber. The curb on the inside cannot be touched, and then if you are unable to get the power down correctly, you tend to lose quite a bit of time, and we saw it there for Mark Anthony Eaton. Vince Da Silva, who took 4th place in the first race, finds himself down in 10th at the moment, chasing down Michael McName, also trying to make amends for his very poor first race. We will see what the sole driver running in the top 10 for GT Panama at the moment can do, Mr. Vince Da Silva. The rest of his team, I'm not sure where they are at the moment, but oh well, Quintero is from his team, my apologies, who runs down in P13 at the moment. But we know that GT Panama also participates in real life racing, so sometimes they may not all be available for participation, but Vince Da Silva always shows up very strong for his team and is currently trying to put the pressure on Michael McName ahead. Raven Plummer seems to be closing up to the back of Louise Daniel Velez, and she is a woman on a mission at the moment, trying to get back into those podium paying positions after her, I guess, poor first race, and is currently putting the pressure on the slower of the three Colombians in the top three.
I was going to say, Chad, it seems as though the two Titans at the front, Barrera and Felipe, are just getting away from their countryman Luis Daniel Velez, and he made himself vulnerable to Raven Plummer, but Raven there going a bit too deep into, I think that's turn 10, and losing out a position to, both positions to Stephen Pommels and Mark Anthony Eaton.
Yeah, no, I was confused there for a second because I saw her go into the corner and only Velez came out of the corner, and I wondered what happened there for a minute, but it seems that she did run a little too wide and that caused her some strife. Eaton there now, right? Oh no, Eaton is ahead of her at the moment and she is giving chase. Oh no, that's Roger Robinson behind her, my apologies. I was trying to figure out what I was missing, but Roger Robinson behind, now coming right up to the back of his teammate, and I don't think those two will be putting up much of a fight between each other. Very respectful of one another, those two drivers, but Mark Anthony Eaton and Stephen Pommels, no love lost between those two. Pommels there looks to have made a mistake and gave Mark Anthony Eaton that position. Eaton for Team B and Pommels for Team C. So Eaton trying to claw back some points for Team C at the moment. Kimani Eastman, the sole driver to score points for that team in the previous race, currently sits down in P8. This series seems a little bit more settled than the first race, I must admit. We're not getting the same level of action taking place up and down the order, but the two front drivers still following each other quite closely, giving us a battle between themselves as they are 4 seconds clear of their teammate Daniel Velez in third, and maybe Eaton will be trying to see if he can take that final podium paying position away from him. He has 8.5 minutes in which to close a 3.5 second gap, so we will see if that is possible. But Raven Plummer has closed right back up to Mark Anthony Eaton and maybe looking to take back that 4th position to get a move on, as she was trying to do before with Luis Daniel Velez, and we will see if that pans out the way she expects it to.
With this team game here, I'm going to focus on strategy here. Well, if you're a part of the JSRA fraternity, we will know that Raven Plummer is definitely a whiz when it comes to strategies, and it is a contributing factor to her amazing talent and speed that we see on display here around Road Atlanta. I'm starting to wonder, because I'm looking at Robinson behind, who is not, it doesn't seem to be catching at a rate of knots up to Raven Plummer. Are they sharing setups for this series? Because it is an open setup series, so you're allowed to change any aspect of the car that is able to be changed. You know, for example, the wing levels, the tire pressures, and suspension settings. Raven is absolutely flying, and Robinson does not seem to be reciprocating. So perhaps that's perhaps a bit of information is not quite being shared within the team. I'm not sure if it's going to be the same thing between Barrera and Felipe. Those two seem to be on level pegging in terms of pace. Perhaps the only thing they're not sharing is their techniques.
I'm gonna contradict you a little bit there, because having been in the chat for a few of the practice sessions, and I do have a few of these rival setups that were shared with me as well. So I don't think it's that information is not being shared. Maybe Raven just having a bit of an edge in terms of how she manipulates her setups, because again, driving style and setups changes aren't always one-to-one. So whereas you and I could have the same setup, my driving style could suit that setup a little bit more than yours does. So it's a matter of, even if you get the setup from another driver, what changes do you have to make it more suited to your driving style? And overall, that might be the difference in terms of their pace here, because Raven Plummer, I don't know if you've ever seen her datasheet scale, but she looks at almost every aspect of her racecraft. Direction change, braking points, trail braking, how long she spends on and off throttle, the amount of time she spends coasting as opposed to on brake, off brake. Her telemetry is mind-boggling, to say the least. I can't keep up with it sometimes. I don't know how she processes all of that data, but that is how she formulates her racecraft, and it clearly works, because as calculated as it is, it does show itself in the talents that she displays on the racetrack. So even if they are using the same setup, I'm sure she could always look at it and go, this might suit me a little bit better, and make the adjustments accordingly. But right now, what she thinks might suit her better is being ahead of one Mark Anthony Eaton, as there is less than 0.2 of a second separating them, and they are side by side heading into the heavy braking zone at the final chicane. She is on the inside, gets a move done before the second part of the chicane, but Eaton gets on the inside, and the two are still neck and neck going through the final corner here, side by side through the final corner. Raven on the outside should have questionably the better line into the first corner, and who is gonna give way here?
Mark does not back out at all, and actually I think Raven, they're deciding that it's too much of a risk to try and hang it out around the outside, and backs off just a little bit and manages to keep it going. She lives to fight another day. 4 minutes left on the clock for Raven Plummer to be the first to be the first Jamaican winner, sorry, not Jamaican winner, but to be the first for Team JSRA after the 3 Colombians in P1, 2, and 3.
Absolutely, and Daniel Velez must be breathing sighs of relief, as Raven was chasing him down earlier but got it all wrong, and now finds herself in between 2 Jamaicans, trying to keep her position as well as make up one more on Mark Anthony Eaton. We know Mark Anthony Eaton can defend with extreme intensity, so he showed it on the previous lap, managing to keep that position from Raven, even though she had the upper hand heading into the braking zone. So she's going to have to reformulate her tactics to try and figure out where she's going to get that move done coming onto the final few laps. I believe we have about 3, maybe 4 laps of racing action to go. The top 3 drivers now going through sector 1 with 3 minutes on the clock for a roughly minute 20 laps. So we may get another 3 or 4 laps of racing action. So she has very limited time in which to get it done, but gets it very wrong there on the start of the S's. Too much curb on the inside there, and finds herself tumbling down the order down to P8 now, as Winslow Silva also gets by and now has to reconvene to try and see where she can put her car from here on out. But Mark Anthony Eaton will be breathing a sigh of relief, as he should now be comfortably sitting in P4, the closest driver to him being Roger Robinson. there is a lapped car somewhere in the midst there, and I'm not sure who that is because Mark Anthony Eaton, who we are on board with, and Roger Robinson just getting by said lapped car. But yeah, Mark Anthony should now be comfortably sitting in P4. But again, it comes back to the domination of the Colombians, and Estefano Barrera is not mucking about this time around because he has cleared off from Felipe Gil and is sitting almost 6 seconds clear of his team at the moment, not keeping as close as they did in the first race. Estefano Barrera, clearly the driver with the pace advantage, but just could not manage to get the job done in race number 1, but is not taking any chances here in the second race. I think most of these positions look settled at this point of the race, with about 2 laps to go, well, maybe 3 laps to go by the time, no, it is going to be 2 laps. By the time they cross the line, that will be the final timed lap, and there will be 1 lap to go after the clock elapses. And I believe Felipe Gil just disconnected, and that is unfortunate for the Colombian team that looked so dominating here this evening, but that will gift Mark Anthony Eaton a podium, and it seems his luck has come back all of a sudden because Mark Anthony Eaton always manages to find himself in the position to pick up the scraps of anything that takes place ahead of him. So manages to find himself on the podium here in the second race after starting, I believe, in P16 for this race. Again, coming back to the fact that although it is sim racing, you still face some of the challenges that you would face in real life racing. There are failures that happen in real life, and just the same failures can happen here in sim racing. That would be whether an internet failure or a power failure for Felipe Gil, who now finds himself not scoring points here in the second race after a pretty good showing in race number 1. But that's part of the action that we get here in sim racing.
So a 1-2-3 becomes a 1-2, and Mark Anthony Eaton finds himself on the final podium spot. P3 Ray Robinson about 2.5 seconds adrift, and doesn't seem to be, I don't think it's going to be enough time to catch Eaton ahead while he has Stephen Pommels behind. He can see Eaton ahead, but that's quite the distance to clear, and as Chad would say, barring catastrophe, I believe this is going to be the finishing order for the drivers here tonight around the road. Atlanta, Roy Robinson there locking up the brakes. Not sure, that just came out of nowhere, perhaps getting a little bit too comfortable with the gap he has ahead and behind. But we're now heading on to the final lap for the drivers. The gaps are there. It doesn't. I don't think these gaps are going to bring forth any more moves. And as a matter of fact, to switch off Raven and give her a break, we've been watching over Raven for a pretty decent chunk of this race. But I mean, can you blame us? She gives us some excellent talking points and excellent racing to do commentary over. It's been an up and down race for her, but as this race dies down, she finds herself getting closer and closer to the back of Vince da Silva, the lone Panamanian here, and that gap has moved from 1.5 seconds to half that in the space of about 3 corners. Vince maybe running out of tires, and Raven pushing, never giving up. She has a couple more corners to see if she can get something done, and this might be a show of the differences of setups, because she is gaining on the straight and she's not even that close to pick up the slipstream, so definitely running a little bit lower downforce than the driver ahead of her. We see Eastman there losing out a position to Roger Keller ahead, perhaps just a bit of a mistake there. That's 1 less point for JSRA Team B. But Estefano Barrera, he lost out on the victory in the first race, and from the back finds himself on the top step. His countryman Luis Daniel Velez finishes P2 13 seconds adrift. Barrera was no slouch this race at all. Mark Anthony Eaton picking up that final podium spot. Comes across the line in P3. Rahe Robinson in P4, followed by Stephen Hummels. Vince Da Silva does keep that position over Raven Plummer, finishing in P6. Plummer in 7th. Roger Keller comes across the line in P8. Kimani Eastman in 9th. McName finishes in 10th. Camilo Quintero in P11, and the final points paying position P12. It's half points, but I don't think Sato is going to pick up a point there or anything, seeing as though he finishes in the pits.
Yeah, and Estefano Barrera, they're stamping his authority on this race, not feeling like keeping the battle as close as he did in the first race. But certainly, just making it known that, hey, I did have the pace to dominate the first race had I been able to cleanly get by my teammate, but having not been able to do so, just, kept it respectful and managed to bring home the car. But we will now be talking to the podium finishers from both races, starting with Mr. Mark Anthony Eaton, who took P3 in the reverse grid. Mark, can you hear me? Mark? Just trying to check what's happening here, ladies and gentlemen, but not getting anything from Mark Anthony Eaton at the moment. So we may move on to our next interview for the time being. Mr. Jaden Harrison. Mark, can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? I can hear you guys now.
Yes. Okay. No, sorry. I think I was muted the first time around, but just do a mic check for me so we make sure that we're hearing you correctly.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah, we're good. So I believe managing to pick up P3 there in the reverse grid race, but catastrophe in race number 1. Just give us your thoughts on the event overall.
Racing was good. That first race, I started behind Raven. I'm not sure if it was a situation where the start procedure wasn't fully communicated properly, but the lights went green and she didn't move. So I tried to go around there, and I guess multiple cars went for the same space, and big hookup. The safety car was kind of the same thing, just confusion, and cold tiles. So when I went to corner 1, the back just snapped around and the car pretty much wrote itself off. So I decided to just kind of relax for the rest of that race, stop being angry, and focus on the second race, which went to plan. But it was fun.
Yeah, no, good result there from the back of the grid in race number 2 to take a podium. But yeah, congratulations, and we look forward to the coming events to see what you can do.
No problem.
So we will next be talking to Jaden Harrison, who took the podium in the first race. Jaden, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so talk us through, well, the first race and then what happened in the second race.
The first race, I got in literally 5 minutes before the race, so no practice coming from, an unfamiliar setup to the actual sim rig. So, throw me off a bunch there. No practice before initially, so jumped into quali, got a banker lap, and was just doing testing from there. And first race went okay. Got taken out by the teammate on lap 1, but somehow managed to get it back up to T3, just keeping consistent and stuff. Then saving tires. And race 2, I made a setup change to the setup in race one kind of account for the medium strategy, and it didn't work very well for me. Didn't get the tires up to temperature, and didn't get the opportunity to even push the car.
Well, I mean, overall, yeah, very up and down event. But any plans to contend with those two rocket ships Colombians up front?
Yeah. Next week, come back stronger, come back with practice,
Absolutely.
and should be good.
Absolutely.
We analyze what we did today and come back stronger next.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations again, Jaden, and good luck for the future events.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So next up, we will be talking to one of the three Colombians that took podiums in those two races. Just a moment while I try to locate him. Here he is. And I am trying to get Luis Daniel Velez into the commentary box. Mr. Velez, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I do apologize. I was speaking.
No worries. Well, yeah, congratulations on your P2 here in the second race. Overall, your team looking quite strong here in the first round of the competition. How are you feeling about your chances overall?
Well, the chances feels great. Our team have the pace. I am just so sad for what happened on the first and the second race, but at the end, I don't know if you saw, but our driver Felipe, he suffered a disconnection on the second race when he was going second, so that will hit us hard.
Yeah, I did notice that, but that gifted you P2. So, how are you feeling? Well, how was the racing for you overall? Yeah, no, overall, a very strong showing from both you and your team. So, congratulations, and we look forward to seeing what you guys do for the rest of the races. Yeah, no problem. Thank you as well. You too. And okay, so now we will be talking to our race one Victor, Mr. One moment, folks, as I am trying to locate him. Okay, unfortunately, the other two podium finishers, Estefan Barrera and Gilles, have had to depart a little bit ahead of schedule. So we will not be hearing from them this afternoon, but certainly they have thrown down the gauntlet. So, I mean, they made all the statements they needed to on the racetrack. They're here to put on a show and to dominate, clearly. So we can just assume that that was what their interview was going to say and take it from there. But overall, a brilliant first round of the competition, and certainly we were treated to a lot of on-track action and some great racing, but we look forward to what is to come in round two. Again, our Caribbean Touring Car Challenge comes to you every Friday evening, same time, 8 o'clock, and you get treated to the round two of the JSRA Chase Radical series next Saturday at Donington Park, and more to come. Oh, they're actually according to El Presidente, race number 2 will carry with it some weather conditions, so definitely excitement to come. So tune in to see what action we bring you next year at the JSRA season 2 in 2024, off to a brilliant start. We thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube and on the Sportsmax app, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. If you want to see what action is coming to you next, be sure to check out our social medias, and thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
We are coming up to as
man, so
there is a run.
outside. Oh yeah.
Let's try the switcheroo.
Yeah.
You came and failed the test, you met the best, expected chess, but got monopoly. I came and bought you out, I knocked you out, I cropped you out with no apologies. I am the hope, the heart, the fate, the spark, the one who will fulfill the prophecy. I just been counting, never lounging, climbing up mountains, bouncing back. Step in the ring, about you step back. They'll learn hot when I get on the track. I like it louder the most, watching all these shooters bow down to the goat. If I can't decide, I'ma probably get both. We done celebrate, but right now I'm a toast, resurrected.
Here is Eastman going side by side with Jaden Harrison. Jaden Harrison took him on the inside, but Eastman says no and closes the door. But here he is now about to lose 2 positions heading into the penultimate corner. Now coming through the final corner, Kian Moss get past Eastman as well.